In this video, I will demonstrate how to create API based on a database store procedure. First of all, I'll show you how to run a store procedure in a SQL Server Studio, Management Studio. This is store procedure I prepared for this video. Get product all will retrieve all the product list in the database. And this is run in SQL Server Management Studio. They return 3 columns: ID, content, and logon ID. These are IDs. The contents, as you can see, it's a JSON string, and logon ID with owner of this record. The next, after we create rest of API, we'll be able to call it through Postman and retrieve the same information from the database. Here's the example. We call API product and retrieve the information from the database: ID, content, and owner ID instead of a logon ID in previous retrieval in the database. To begin with, we need to create a .NET Core project. We call it Web API. You open the Visual Studio and create a new project and pick up ASP.NET Core Web Application. Then you choose API template and click off Configure for HTTPS to simplify the application. The next, once you create a project, first you need to do is create models. Within models, you can create a class called product, which is corresponding to the product we retrieved from database. There's ID, content, owner ID. Now within the models, we're going to create a data access layer to allow the .NET code to communicate with a store procedure. Now within this data access layer, we have three methods: get data, set data with return. I can explain to you every one. In order to access the database, we need to get the connection string. Here's how we're gonna do it here. Within the app settings.json, we specify a connection string here. And within data access layer, the first thing, we need to get the SQL connection string. Basically, we're using an I configuration to get the string directly from app settings.json. Once we have a data access layer, once we have the connection string, we'll be able to working on every functions in data access layer. The first rule is the retrieval, get data. The input parameter is store procedure, and the corresponding parameter. We get the connection strings, and this is usual SQL Server client operations. This is regular code. We specify the command type is store procedure, and also the data type is a string. We run this store procedure by execute it filled into a data store. Then we take the first tables in the data store as our return. So the data type return is a data table. This is the first function or method in the data access layer, The next is the set data, which is with a similar settings, but only difference is execute non-query. We have a store procedure as an input parameter, and a parameter is a store procedure's parameter. When we run it, there's no return for it. The third one is set data with the return. We basically put the store procedure in there, parameter in there. Only difference is we run the execute scalar, and with the return from the store procedure, return back to the caller of the store procedure. The set data and set data with the return usually work for adding record and update record. And get data usually work with data retrieval. Now we have a data access layer. We can create APIs and to use this data access layer. Here we basically create a product controller to have our API in there. Product controller. Then we add here's a product controller, here's the code, and we add data access layer first. Then we create 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 method to it. 2 of them are get. Another one is post. Another one is put, and then delete. Okay, get is basically retrieve all and retrieve a record. Post is create a record. And put is update record, and delete is delete record. We look at each one of them. First of all, when we do use a treat, we use get and to retrieve the product. Here's retrieve all, and we use the store procedure called USP get function all 3D as we see before in the previous slides, and we retrieve all the product list. And basically, once we get the data table, we look through the data table and populate to the product and return the product list. Next is retrieve based on ID. We call a procedure USP get product by product ID, with by ID as an input parameter for the store procedure, and they retrieve a single record and return a single record there, product. The next one is a post. Post, basically, we put the content of the product into a input parameter. We post, basically create a record using this store procedure, USP create product by logon ID, and put into post method. Okay, the next one is update by ID and the value of the content. We use a USP update product by ID. The last one is a delete. Once we know we want to delete a specific product with IDs, we basically call a store procedure called delete product by ID by putting the ID as a parameter. That's it for the APIs. Then we run the application locally by clicking on IIS Express. Then you'll get the return from your default browser. This is default value for this application. Then we can test our APIs through Postman. Here's our URLs, local server, and APIs and product with IDs. We retrieve single record, ID content, and owner ID. Now we post a a new record into our database, basically create a record into our new database. We add value through this XML string into our database. And next, we retrieve all the product by call this URL. Get. Notice that the ID 308 and the distance attribute 30. We can make a change through the update. Next, here's the update. So we can update 308 with a value of 70 here. Distribute distance 70. Here is the same. Once we run update, next we retrieve 308 back. We'll see the record get updated. 70, retrieve 308. Last, we're going to do delete the 308 by call this API. So what we learned from this video. First of all, we basically run a SQL Server Stored procedure in SQL Server Management Studio. Then we create a project called Web API. Then within the Web API, we create a RESTful API. Then we basically, once we get the project created, we add a data access layer, which is unique for this project. We're not using entity framework to do the retrieval, to do the communication with the SQL Server. We use data access layer. Through data access layer, we can call stored procedures, know that for our own purpose. And after that, we create a product controller which has REST APIs for get, post, put, and delete. Totally 5 methods. Then finally, we call the RESTful API through Postman to verify the data we will be able to deal with it. And that's all for this video. Thank you for watching.